Hi everyone, my name is JC. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be actually a series of videos about the X-Files. Now, when I was young, I pretty much kind of mostly grew up in the 90s. But at the time, I thought I was very kind of, I don't know what's the word in English precisely, but I was very easily spooked, I guess. And so the X-Files were a little bit scary sometimes to watch. And so I am aware a little bit about it here and there. I saw a couple of episodes, a couple of scenes here and there, but I never watched it in its entirety until recently. I decided to finally give it a go from the very beginning. And I realized actually watching, especially the first season, that most of what I remember is actually from the first season. I barely watched, it turns out, anything after that. One reason could be also that maybe for some reason on TV they just kept kind of repeating the first season very often compared to the other seasons. I don't know, but it seems that that's the season I mostly watched for some reason. So what I'll do in this series of videos is that I will go through episodes very briefly in the plot, and if there's something that I don't understand, I will say so. And we'll look at a couple of screenshots as well. And I will briefly explain what's going on. Before I go into that, though, I just want to make clear that this video and the ensuing videos will have spoilers, okay? So if you've never watched the X-Files, if you don't know anything about them whatsoever, then please do not watch my videos because I definitely will spoil a few parts for you here and there. But if something doesn't make sense, I want to make sure that I get your input. Maybe it made sense for you, and in that case, like, please explain it to me in the comments. Of course, I did read the kind of summary in the wiki, but there are parts where I still don't understand what's going on whatsoever. And I think the first season overall, actually, in my opinion, is relatively weak. There are some episodes which are just bad, okay, in my opinion. But the second season, when we get to it, I found a quite interesting part in it. Uh, and yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the first season. And the first episode is the pilot. And in the pilot, actually, most of the time, let me just jump into the screenshots actually from the pilot. So there we go. There we have one of them. And this particular character is the Smoking Man. So this is a character that is obviously very mysterious. We found out the name, but much, much later, actually. And he appears in the interview of Scully. Okay, so Scully comes and joins the FBI department. She's assigned to Mulder's department, who is dealing with kind of like, the supernatural. Mulder buys very much into the supernatural, whereas Scully is much more kind of skeptical and approaches everything from a scientific point of view. So very data based, like if she doesn't really buy into the supernatural. So it's a interesting duo, right? One is very data based, the other one is very much open to the supernatural. Anyway, but this guy is present during Scully's interview, and he doesn't say a lot, actually. And we don't really know what his role is. It's kind of revealed later, obviously, but at the moment we're just kind of being introduced to a bunch of characters. So that guy, and then we meet Mulder for the first time. And of course, he looks very extremely young at the time. I do have to say though, for the casting, I know that obviously neither he or neither David Duchovny or Gillian Anderson really went anywhere in their career after the X-Files. But I do have to say though that the casting, they do look good in the show. I mean, sure, you can probably cast other people and that's fine, but as far as the show goes, I think they are good. They kind of look like, not like the typical like stone-faced FBI agent, but you can have a conversation with them. They're a bit more open, and I thought that was a pretty good choice. Well, there's Gillian Anderson, obviously. And here, this is actually from the ending of the episode, which I'll discuss briefly in a bit. But this is kind of the ending. So what happens is that there's this boy. Well, he's not really a boy. He's kind of a late teenager, Billy. He claims to be abducted by the aliens. And he's basically like delivering more and more victims to be abducted. Apparently, the victims that, if the tests like don't go well, they pretty much get killed off, and that's it. And then this is the final scene from the episode. This is actually a common scene from the endings. This is again the smoking man, and he usually gets the piece of evidence, whatever is gathered. I think in this case it was some kind of tracker, and he basically, yeah, just puts it in one of these boxes. So I know that this is probably obviously not really true, but it does make me wonder this particular part, whether there is actually in the Pentagon some kind of like room like that where they store a bunch of these things, and the public just look. We certainly don't have access to some things. That we have to be honest about that. We have to admit that. So what exactly are they hiding from us, and like in what quantity? That is a legit question. That is actually a legit question. So let's talk about the episode very briefly. So, like I mentioned, it's mostly a bunch of introductions. We meet characters for the first time, so they have to set it up. Like, who is Mulder? Who is Scully? Who works for the FBI? Like a bunch of these peripheral characters, like the smoking man, etc., etc. I think like Skinner appears as well, but I'm not sure actually. Maybe not. Maybe not yet. Skinner is like Mulder's boss. Maybe he doesn't appear in that episode. But what kind of frustrated me a bit is that Billy's father, he obstructs the investigation quite a lot, and that is very frustrating. I mean, because who is he really? I mean, is he above the FBI? I don't think so. So does he have really the authority to prevent an investigation? I just I found it very unbelievable. I obviously understand that, he's also like the father of Billy. I get that he's trying to protect him, but I just don't think he has the authority to do that. So I found that pretty dodgy. I didn't really get the whole thing about the time stopping as well. I found that pretty weird. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I don't know why those 8 minutes or whatever, 9 minutes are important. Why is specifically 9 minutes? I didn't really get that. But maybe somebody can explain it. Yeah. Also, like in the end, it was kind of frustrating because Billy gets interviewed, I think, and but the evidence gets basically buried and eventually hidden by the smoking man. So that was pretty kind of like a frustrating episode that even like the FBI is kind of they're prevented from actually solving the case. So that was for episode 1. Let me close these ones because we don't need them anymore. Let's go to the second episode, which I believe it was not actually that one. Let me see if I can. Or maybe it was that one actually. Hmm. Let me see. These comes from the X-Files archive, by the way, which is a great website. It has screenshots from every episode. So like guys, if you need that, then go there, xfilesarchive.com. And yeah, they have like I was looking for that. I was wondering if somebody had that or if I had to do it manually, but somebody already actually did that. Probably automatically, I would assume, but still, respect guys, respect guys. Yeah, so this is the correct episode. Episode 2 is Deep Throat. So here we have a situation where it starts with a SWAT assault on a house, and they find this guy who's like, really messed up, and it's like, what the hell is going on, right? So they start investigating, and eventually, like, they encounter a young couple, and hey, there's Seth Green. So for those who don't know, much, much, much later, about, I don't know, maybe what, 15 years later or so, Seth would be the pilot on Mass Effect in the game, in the entire trilogy, actually. That's the first time I saw him, but obviously, he made his debut like much, much earlier, and he even appeared in the X-Files, obviously. So that was quite interesting. He played Joker in Mass Effect, for those who don't know. So eventually, like Mulder goes to investigate the airbase by himself, and eventually there's this kind of scene where this triangular craft hovers above him and then flies away really quickly, and then he ends up being chased by the military. They capture him, gas him, I guess. So then he ends up inside, and eventually, like in the end, yeah, he meets this character called Deep Throat. Now, it's not actually the same Deep Throat as the one who exposed the Nixon conspiracy. This is another guy, but he's using the same name. But yeah, I checked, okay? It's not the same Deep Throat, just using the same name. So, about this episode, though, again, what was a bit frustrating is that there's a lot of evidence that is buried, that is hidden from them. There is obviously like a difference between Mulder and Scully. Scully doesn't believe in the UFO theory, but Mulder, that's why Mulder ends up going alone to the base, because she is like, Nana, I don't believe in that. But if you want, like, do it by yourself, kind of thing. So he gets captured, and it was interesting also that the way that they kind of erased his memory, it was using like eye drops. I'm not like, you know a medical guy, so I don't know. But it sounds very suspicious that you can get brainwashed, or you can get your memory erased just by getting eye drops. Sounds a bit far-fetched, but I don't know. Any other comments about this episode? I'm not too sure. Oh yeah, there was one thing that I found a bit annoying, is that when Mulder is discovered by the military start chasing him, and he basically has an option, like, to kind of escape in any direction he wants, but he chooses to run along the runway, right? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. If you're trying to escape, why not escape into the vegetation, into the trees or whatever? Like, he literally chose the worst way to run away. The worst option. I mean, okay, the worst option would be, I guess, to run towards the military. That would be the dumbest thing you can do. But this is the second dumbest thing you could do, is to like just run away on the runway itself. Why not just run into the grass, into the tall grass, and then into the trees or whatever? That I didn't understand at all. That is kind of like a thing that doesn't make sense. I mean, we have to advance the plot somehow, so let's do that. But yeah, overall, I'm like, Could have been better. Could have been better. Okay, let me close these. All right, next one is about it's called Squeeze, episode 3. So we start off with a kind of obnoxious former partner of Scully. He's just like a douchebag. The guy is he wants to get to the top pretty much, but he doesn't really care about the cases that much. He just wants to get to the top as quickly as possible. But yeah, he's not, I don't know, he's not really an important character though. So then we meet this, they catch this guy, Eugene Toombs, and they catch him, he's like in the ventilation shafts or something like that. So they capture him, they start to interrogate him, and he they put him to a lie detector test, and some of the questions he answers truthfully, but some of the questions, especially about some kind of distant past, he lies about, and it's actually recorded as a lie, but nobody believes that, which is kind of odd. Except Mulder, of course. He believes that the guy is lying. Then, they meet some kind of ex-cop who was investigating similar cases like long time ago, but it was still the same Toombs though, and he was still that young. Then I think this scene is probably from the towards the end, where he tries to assault Scully, but Mulder intervenes and obviously captures him. And finally, this is the final scene where he's captured, and they put him into a prison, and he starts to use like newspapers to build a nest. I'm not sure why a newspaper though. Like that, I didn't really understand why specifically he needs a newspaper. But anyway, that's what he's using to build his nests. So that's kind of the story though. So the Toombs guy is a mutant. It's called Squeeze because he's able to kind of contort his body. Like he's able to get into very tight spaces. Like his body kind of expands. Like his arms get longer, his fingers get longer, etc., etc., etc. But he leaves. He's not very good though. He's not very stealthy because he leaves his fingerprints everywhere, and sometimes the thing is like they look elongated, right? But that's because yeah, he elongated his fingers, but once you shrink it back down, it goes back to his regular fingerprint, and so we know it's him. Like there's not a lot of mystery in this episode, I thought, at all. Like we know exactly what's going on. Mulder knows it throughout the episode. It's just like the other people are a bit slow. So yeah, uh, the Toombs guy, he kills people. He gets their livers. He needs to get like 5 of them or something like that, if I remember correctly. And then he's able to basically like stay young somehow. Uh, yeah, but yeah, that's basically for the episode. I didn't think it was a particularly great episode. It is what it is, though. But that's it for Squeeze. Let's go to the next one, which is number 4, and number 4 is Conduit. So it starts out. Let me get the screenshots here. Oh yeah, so this is from the beginning. It starts out. We have a camping scene, and this. I think this is the mother. Actually, she's asleep in the van. Uh, there is like a huge kind of vibration and lots of light suddenly, and yeah, so she's obviously jolted awake, and I think like one of the sisters like it disappears. I believe that's what happens. I mean, it's been a while, I watched it already, but I believe that's what happens. This is the van on the roof of the van, because a lot of people obviously don't believe their story, but when they check the roof, they notice that, oh wow, there's like scorch marks on top of it, right? So obviously like something very hot was actually present. Then So one of the sisters who is not abducted, she starts to see, she's watching like TV, right? And it's like static. And for us it's static, but she actually sees numbers, like sequences, and she starts to write those sequences down on a piece of paper. Now, this particular one, um, this is obviously a picture, right, of a woman. I'm not sure exactly. I forgot who that is. Is that sister, or maybe that is the sister actually? Um, but before that, she gets other pictures, and these pictures come from the Voyager spacecraft. So, for example, some kind of Mozart, some kind of like, yeah, sequences or pictures from the pictures that were sent with the Voyager spacecraft. What I found very interesting though about that is that apparently, if you, I don't know, if you happen to watch TV and, you know, you watching TV and somehow you're able to detect some patterns in the static, and those patterns happen to be from the Voyager spacecraft, apparently the FBI can bust your door and you can be like under arrest for some reason. I didn't understand why whatsoever. If somebody knows, please explain to me in the comment section, but I didn't get that part whatsoever. It's like, so what? This is not a dangerous message. There's nothing, there's nothing dangerous about that whatsoever. What, are you gonna hurt people with some Mozart music? I don't think so. So yeah, but obviously, like this particular thing here with this picture, this is a bit more advanced. Eventually, we end up with this scene. This woman, young woman here, she has information, but somebody, she doesn't mention who, it's just like somebody prevents her from disclosing the information. So once again, it's one of those very frustrating episodes where we are blocked from seeing the actual evidence. And eventually, just after that, there's also a scene with the mother. That's her mother, and she basically kind of says the same thing. She repeats the same thing, and she tells Mulder and Scully, like, just don't. I kind of forbid you to approach my daughter. Don't come near her. Don't come near us. Just forget about it. Move on. So it's a very frustrating episode because again, we have something going on, but we are blocked from investigating it. And yeah, so it ends up here. It says here in the wiki that so they find some kind of a wallet from Greg. This is one of the boyfriends of one of the sisters. It was Tessa, not Ruby, who was pregnant. Under interrogation, Tessa confesses to killing Greg, but denies Ruby was at the lake that night. The agents return to Morris's house and, finding it deserted, discover the binary covered pieces of paper laid across the living room. That's the picture that I just showed you a couple of moments ago with Ruby's face. Returning to the lake, they find Darlene and Kevin in the nearby woods. A motorcycle gang, for some reason, appears. I think because Greg is part of that gang. But anyway, as Mulder hurries to rescue Kevin from their wake, Scully discovers Ruby nearby. Ruby is seen in the hospital bed with Kevin by her side. When questioned about the ordeal, she says that she was told by an unnamed group to not say anything. And Darlene is the mother. She pretty much says the same thing. Back in Washington, Scully listens to a tape of hypnotic sessions in which Mulder recalls the night his sister vanished. So, yeah, we also like, this is kind of like maybe to establish that Mulder's sister was abducted, or at least that's kind of the claim in the first season, right? But overall, I thought that the season was not very good. And then finally, we get to number 5, and that's going to be the final one for this episode, for this video. It's called The Jersey Devil. I really didn't like this episode. I just, I don't know. It could be called anything other than the X-Files, and you'd never know, literally. So what happens in that episode is that there is a murder in the city, I think, somewhere in some American city. And so Mulder and Scully go to investigate. They go into this park where apparently some murders happen. They meet the park ranger, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, there's some kind of weird thing going on." So they start to investigate. Uh, he Mulder goes to meet some homeless people, and one of them gives him this picture. Amazing picture, by the way, isn't it? I mean, like, seriously, just incredible. I mean, this is like a drawing from a 5-year-old, okay? But I don't think, like, I think they mentioned in the episode that this is drawn by an adult. This is like the worst drawing by an adult that I have ever seen in my life. This is really, really, really bad. It's like they were pressed for time or something, so we have to do it. And it's like, okay. So, yeah, this picture is probably really, really dark for you guys. Sorry about that. But this is the actual, like, woman who's doing the killings. And she's like some kind of, she has some kind of special genetic makeup. And she's not like a mutant or something, but she has like a specific genetic makeup, and she's quite beautiful actually. Eventually, what happen is that they chase her, and it's not just Mulder and Scully who chase her, but it's also the cops. And eventually, the cops shoot her dead. So now she's dead. And in the final scene, they show this girl, which is, well, I assume that this is the daughter of the woman, but they kind of leave it at that. So we don't have any information. I guess the implication is that eventually this girl is gonna grow up just like that woman, and so the killings will continue or resume at some point in the future. Uh, but yeah, I thought this episode was a bit kind of weird. I mean, again, it could be called anything else than the X Files, and you'd never know it's X Files. Um, I just didn't get the point as well. Like, uh, just like it seems like if this episode is not part of the X Files, it it works just as fine, you know. But the one thing I found frustrating though is that uh, Scully, I think when Scully and Mulder chase, what there's also with the park ranger, when they chase that woman, they shoot her with a tranquilizer dart. Okay, so obviously that will have some effect at some point. You're not like you're not like immune to that. So at some point she would have passed out or something. But the frustrating part I found is that the police or the SWAT team or whatever, they just shoot her dead. So they probably like got her surrounded or almost surrounded, and they just shoot her dead. Is that like kind of normal police operation in America? Is that how the police operate in America? Uh, it just sounds very a bit unbelievable to me. And especially you have to remember also, she is not armed. She doesn't have any weapons whatsoever. She's just like running around like almost naked. She doesn't have any weapons. She doesn't have any special abilities, or she doesn't know any martial arts or anything like that. So if you really have to shoot, I mean, you can always shoot the leg or something like that. You can always like find a way to incapacitate the victim, right? Without like killing them. So the fact that they actually shot her dead, I actually found that extremely, extremely weird. And maybe that is actually the weirdest thing I found in this episode. But yeah, overall, I would say the first 5 episodes, it's kind of like a mixture of good and bad. There is some like kind of okay, but some episodes were just not good at all in my opinion. And like the Jersey Devil, for example, yeah, that's an example of a pretty bad one. But let me know what you thought. And if you have any other kind of speculation or ideas, because yeah, this show is all about speculation, really. There's a lot of things that are not revealed, at least yet. Maybe like in the future they are. But yeah, guys, if you have any kind of thoughts or theories, drop your comments. And I'm curious what you guys think. Maybe you have some completely like different take, which I missed or I I didn't consider. So yeah, drop your comments, and in the next video, we'll talk about the next five. So until then, take care, stay safe. Well, especially like it's very hot lately, so take care, stay hydrated, and I'll catch you on the next one. GC signing off. Peace.